Welcome to Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable show where we discuss all things fire service related. This week the panel is going to be talking about, we're talking about SCBA and specifically your entry-level SCBA training. We may wander, we often wander when we get into discussion, but the topic is SCBA recruit level, entry level training. So if you happen to be watching us tonight, if you're watching us live on YouTube, you can feel free to leave a YouTube comment or leave a comment here at the events page. You'll be happy to, we'll get you to join right into the conversation if you do that. So if you are watching on YouTube, leave a comment. We'll bring you right into the discussion. So, introductions. My name is Peter Lamb. I'm the author of PeteLamb.com. I'm also the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast. Let's introduce the panel, starting with Adam. Adam, say hello.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Adam Ganaway, coming from Kellogg, Iowa. I'm a volunteer with the Kellogg Township Fire Department.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. Ethan, say hello.
Hi, Pete. Ethan Bansek from Lorain, Ohio, founder of Pass It On Fire Training.
All right. Thanks, Ethan. Frank, say hello.
Frank Blackley, Assistant Chief of Administrative Services, Wilmington, North Carolina Fire Department.
Excellent. Thanks. Always a pleasure to have you here, Frank. Greg, say hello.
Good evening, everybody. Greg Howard. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for the Dashwood Fire Department in British Columbia, Canada.
Thanks for being here, Greg. And Joe Starnes going to help me out tonight, kind of co-hosting.
You're so kind. I wish it was that much credit, Chief. Joe Starnes, Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department, PIO, and also project manager for Kill the Fly Shoulder.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. And now, first-time roundtable. Martin, are you there? Martin, are you with us? You know what? I will come back to Martin just in case. Martin is with us, so we'll bring him into the discussion if we can. So if we could get, we'll just throw up the very first slide and we'll start the discussion and just basically run the panel to get some information here and see where we're going. Let's move right over to let's establish the baseline. What are you using? What brand SCBA is the panel using? Or for the folks at home, certainly you could tell us what you're using. It's an appropriate place to leave your comments if you'd like to do so. So starting with the panel, Adam, what do you use? What brand do you use?
They're using the Scott's 2216s.
Okay, so a little bit, a version back on the Scotts, so an older model of the Scotts at this point. Ethan, what do you use in your neck of the woods?
We are Scott 2216 also, Pete.
Scott 2216. Frank, what's going on in Wilmington? What do you use? You're muted, Frank. Always the way.
Currently we're using Draeger, but we are in an evaluation process for new SCBA probably in another year. But we'll be choosing the vendor here probably, I hope sometime this summer.
What are you looking at? What models are you looking at since you're exploring so you're currently Draeger and you're looking around. Who are you looking at seriously, Frank?
We're evaluating 4 different companies, Avon, MSA, Scott, and Interspiro.
Okay, yeah, good. All right, all good names, certainly. Greg, what do you use north of the border?
We're MSA, bordered by a couple Scott departments.
Okay, so your mutual aid is Scott, okay.
Yeah, and I just completed an initial course for Draeger for another department.
Okay, good, yeah. Good. Joe, what are you using in Oak Grove?
Using Scott 5000.
All right, Scott, the newest version of.
No, not the. It's the one before the new. It's not the.
It's not the 55. Okay, no. So it's probably the 45s, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Martin, are you with us? Martin, do you have any audio at this point? All right, we'll see if we can drag him into the conversation. So our viewers at home, just hit us in the YouTube comment. Tell us what it is you're using for your SCBA in your department, your world, or whatever. So let's run a couple of things, and you can answer this all in one shot here if you don't mind. How many hours of total training do you give your entry-level firefighters? So how many hours of total training do they get, and what percentage or what number of hours is SCBA? And then what types of SCBA things do you do? I did this very deliberately. On the slide, you show 3 firefighters searching on a hose line in a firehouse, because that's pretty common. In most of America, that drill is probably done a bunch of times. What types of things do you teach them besides the searching sorts of things? So, Adam, how long before somebody can ride? You know, you're going to make an interior structural firefighter. I know you've got different categories of firefighters, but your interior structural person, how many total hours of training do they get, and how much of that is SCBA based?
We send them to the Fire 1 class, and then when they do get on, we'll have some of our guys go down and do some work with them. We really don't have any set of hours here on ours.
Okay, so it's not a set number of hours, but it's certainly a couple of nights worth anyway, right?
Yeah.
All right. Ethan, do you have any idea of what you may not know the training hours, but do you have some idea of what the training hours are?
Yeah, they go through the academy here in the county, and then they get their basic skills there in Fire 1 and 2, and then, like you said, I'm not sure about the total number of hours.
Okay. Frank, any guesses in your world? I know you're not in the training side of the house, but any guesses? Total academy time, and then how much of that is under air?
Total academy is 6 months. I'm not sure. I think it's somewhere over 700 hours that we do, and then we obviously do under the Firefighter 1 and 2 SCBA, and we also just spent about 2.5 days up in Joe's neck of the woods over at Gaston Community College, and they have a live burn building, and we send them up there as part of their training, because we need the burn building we have here in Wilmington is just gas, and we really want to get in there where they can actually do some real burning with products, not just gas.
Right, right. Yeah, that is a drawback to the gas building. Greg, any thoughts? How much total training time, and about how much of that is under air?
We have a couple of categories for firefighters, but the interior attack firefighter does Firefighter 1 and 2. It's a board-approved program, and that's 4 days of live fire. Plus, I believe it's about 140 hours total time for the course.
Okay, good stuff. And Joe, do you have a county system, right? What goes on in your world, Joe?
Yeah, well, they use the state system. The state just combined Firefighter 1 and 2. The actual SCBA, the PPE side, is like 18 hours. But you got fire control, got 2 versions of fire behavior and fire control, which requires PAC use. So it's more than that, and I really don't know exactly how much more than that, Chief.
All right. Martin, let me see if Martin is with us. Martin, do you have any audio you can send us? Doesn't sound like it. All right. So yeah, and so in my world, when we were at the Mass Fire Academy, the total program initially for the recruit training was about 492 hours, and almost 100 hours was operating under air or air pack related. So that counts the burns, that counts all of that. So almost 25% of the training was actually related to air pack use. So that's a fairly heavy percentage or concentration. Warren was saying that when he left, they were using MSA. So again, a couple of different brand names. You know, we often say the word Scott like Kleenex. You know, it's a brand name and it represents SCBA, but there are lots of different types out there. So thank you, Warren. I appreciate that. So, you know, we talk about how much time, and I have some thoughts on this. So we teach firefighters to awareness. What does awareness mean? When I reference this slide and I talk about awareness, what I'm talking about is, you know, putting the pack together, parts of the pack, use of the pack, maintenance of the pack, all of those sorts of things I would just kind of lump into an awareness category. We spend a fair amount of time searching we do some live fire stuff. Does anyone have a specific maze, like a Draeger maze or like a specific maze building in your fire academy? Is anybody using just a specific confined maze? Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the last year one of the training officers for the Parksville Fire Department did an excellent training. So it's got entanglement drops, drop downs, climb overs. It's got a couple weighted push-throughs, so hinged top panels with car tires on them basically for weight, so they can push through it. And it's built so that it takes about 20 minutes to get through. So by the time you're coming out the other end of your working, you're in the mill. It's also got, you can also rearrange it. So it's built out of plywood, and you can take one section and move it to a different spot, so you can switch it up so people don't get too accustomed to it.
So let me ask you a question, and this is just a kind of an overhead question. It's Chief Lamb being the devil's advocate. Is entanglement appropriate for the new firefighter? And I have pros and cons on that. Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a totally valid question, and the way we deal with it is the recruit starts without wearing an air pack or a helmet, and they go through and they get the feeling for it, and then we add a helmet and an air pack and no mask, and then it elevates, and then you go in with a black belt mask through the air. So you build them into it slowly, because I had the experience where I was 2 weeks in the fire service and I got put down, got given the pipe drill. I was jammed in the pipe and I had to come out the other side. And to be honest, I spent probably a couple of years getting over the claustrophobia, so I'm pretty sensitive about what I do with new people in airplanes.
Yeah, I just wonder. I mean, I agree that new people do need to be able to troubleshoot, if you will, and I just want to make sure that when we are doing those drills, we don't confuse what it is we're doing. Sometimes senior firefighters make a little more out of those drills, and they become greater challenges than maybe new members are ready for. It's just my experience in doing that. So, Frank, do you teach entanglement early on in the recruit school?
They do a basic class. Not sure exactly how in depth they do get. They've got an entanglement room at Cape Fear Community College training center, and so they do send them through there. And it's not just the whole entanglement portion, but it's also kind of like these confined space, those small openings to get through. How can you take your SCBA off, put it back on, just to try and get them somewhat proficient, and being not only just being able to be comfortable with it, but having some confidence.
Right, and I believe in that. I believe that you've got to get them in the low-profile maneuvers, all of those kinds of things. And then the comment from the chat room is, we've got to go somewhere of giving them complete confidence so they can don and doff in trouble situations and all of those. But there's also that the advanced firefighter that might go to a smoke diver school or to something very, very advanced, and I think that's something that that's a little bit different than the recruit firefighter. And I just would make that comment as a trainer. Some people, in fact, go a little heavier than they need to, I think, in some cases. Martin, I see your mic is muted. Martin, do you want to talk about Virginia Beach for just a second? You just unmute that mic. Try to give me a little audio. You were unmuted there. All right. We may still have a glitch. But a short story was that Virginia Beach teaches SCBA for 10 8-hour days, building with confidence building. So that's awesome. So that's pretty substantial and pretty significant. So we talked a little bit about the maze and the entanglement and all that sort of stuff. Let's move and see where else we get into as we move forward. So if you're watching, feel free to participate. Viewers, feel free to participate. Send a YouTube comment. What do you do? Do we start with entanglement? How much time do you give your SCBA training and all that sort of stuff? So send those comments in via YouTube. Well, have you built any specialized props? And it sounded like, Greg, you have built a specialized prop that is somewhat movable. You have a photograph there of maybe getting someone through a low profile in the barrel, someone crawling across the rafters. And I think that one of my questions is, you know, when we're teaching the student, make sure we teach him why he's doing what he's doing or she is doing what she is doing. Make sure the firefighter knows that you are not actually going to send them into a piece of ductwork. You know, that probably is not going to happen, but essentially that's what we're training them to do. What we're doing is teaching confidence, their ability to move and shift with the weight on their back and so forth. Adam, have you seen cases where maybe the SCBA training went a little far?
I haven't here. Nothing. We do just like set stuff up in the station, but as far as going a little too far, I haven't seen anything here.
Okay. And so what's your confidence level? I mean, you're not doing that many working fires a year. Are folks ready, or in other words, is your SCBA training working? Or are you having people get to the fires and have trouble? That's the question.
No, our SCBA seems to be going good. It's just getting it in their head that you get out before the low pass alarm goes off. Have that many a times. It's, you know, you can drill it in them, and sometimes it just doesn't seem like it gets all the way through.
Right, right. Ethan, any specialized props or stuff up there, or what do you got? Any comments about where we've been so far?
Yeah, no, I'm not very familiar with what they do up here. I am familiar with Columbus Fire, and they do a 32-week academy, and they do take a week out for fireground survival. One day I know is entanglement, one day is the Nance drill, and one day is the Denver drill.
Right, right. Yeah, all SCBA stuff and all challenging, real challenging stuff. Warren is out there and he's got the info. So Prince William is about 800 hours, 22 weeks, quite a bit of SCBA. So it's going all over, much like what we were doing is they're using SCBA a number of times, but they do have a maze, entanglement, buddy breathing, and PT, doing a little bit of PT and so forth. So that's important. Joe, what is the comment you were just making about the CPR piece?
Well, lately I know, for instance, Charlotte, it's been hot on the social media side. The doing CPR with the firefighter down, as it relates to RIT packaging and transport from the IDLH environment, that's become very, very, very current and very active type of discussion and training.
That is a big area of discussion right now, without question, and we'll go back to Warren for just a minute. Warren, we must have had the Warren filter on. Warren got tossed out tonight, so he's coming at us from the outside, but always a pleasure. So they've got a 40-foot container that was converted into a maze, and a confined space prop that can be used. So really, when we find that we're, and I guess this is just Pete's editorial for a second, and that is, don't you find that in some cases we teach confined space, entanglement, saving ourselves, and RIT, and we just kind of lump all of this stuff together. If you're teaching a firefighter survival techniques, that's him trying to save himself. If you're teaching rapid intervention, that's rapid intervention. That's other firefighters trying to save other firefighters. But we tend to lump all these things together. And the one that Joe just added, super important, not a lot of work being done on it, is what do you do? We do this rapid intervention. What do you do with the downed firefighter who has red hot gear, red hot buckles, maybe on low air? How do you even, get him out of his gear appropriately? What are you wearing to get him out of his gear, and so on and so forth? So there's lots of stuff. There are lots of tentacles to this animal for sure. So that's important. So low profile. What is the primary? When I say emergency procedures, do you? I didn't ask the question. Does everybody here have an emergency buddy breathing system, an EBBS, on your air packs? That is the 4 or 5 foot hose that you can connect and quick fill or share buddy breathing. Adam, do you have those?
We've got the hookups, but we don't have the hose. The actual hose is on the. We got a separate RIP pack
Right.
on the engine, and it's actually hooked up to the RIP pack is where the hose is at. But we do have the capability on our Scots.
All right, and what I'm speaking with specifically is that some of the packs have a 2 or 3 foot tether line called an EBBS, where you can do that. Ethan, are they using those packs, Columbus or Lorraine or anywhere?
Yeah, Lorraine, they do have it in the red pack as well, and all our packs do have the UAC on it.
Right, right. Frank, are you in that range of got the capability to share air?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty standard. Greg.
Just the RIP pack and it carries the URC.
Yep. Okay. Just the RIP pack. Okay. Certainly. So when we are talking about that, and Joe's saying not at Oak Grove, they don't have them. Using those emergency procedures are important. So that's good stuff. So let's go on to the next thing, and I think most. So, what training do you do? How do you get a firefighter to know how long his bottle will last? How long his or her bottle will last? We'll run the panel with that. What drill do you do that gives the firefighter their actual consumption time, or do you do that drill, Adam?
We have not done it here. There's a couple of us that went up to the Fire Service Training Bureau in Ames, and actually they did it up there. So there's a us that did it, but no, we've never ran that drill here.
Yeah, I think that's an important one. Ethan, if they are they running that drill around and about?
If we don't have a fire each quarter, they will do a breathe down drill. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I'm just curious, a little more info as we go through it. So, do you breathe it down to low air, or do you actually breathe it down to low air, give them a time, and then actually breathe it down to no air? Frank, what do you do?
I think they're pretty much breathing it all the way down, and they're somewhere around 20, 25 minutes maybe. It was kind of interesting. We had our recruit graduation Friday evening, and one of the guys that is very, very fit got his to 40 minutes, and everybody was quite impressed.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. The problem is who when you're putting him on a piece of apparatus, who's his partner? Because his partner's going to be running out of air, and he won't be, you know. He'll be doing one bottle to their two in some cases. Greg, what do you do for breathing down, and how do you give a firefighter their actual consumption?
I've done a couple things. One, my favorite is I just set up a tracker on the station, and the guys come in and they go around the station once. This is plugged in on here, obviously. Climb up through the cab of the truck, out the other side, around the station again. Next time they come in, they go underneath the truck. So if they're the bigger guys, they got to drop the pack and shuffle underneath. Pop up, go underneath the next truck. So we've got a 3-truck bay, and they just go around and around until they hit the low air. And we take them right down until there's no air left, because we can. There's a few odd things the pack does as it gets quite low on, and it's good for them to see it.
Right. You want them to see exactly what happens. That's great. That's a great technique. Martin is also talking about stretching a hand line through the station, the apparatus bay, hoods over the mask, blackout masks. Once you reach the nozzle, you make your way back, trying to get controlled breathing and following a dry hand line, which is, good stuff. Anytime you can teach firefighters to be on a hand line, charged, dry, preferably charged if it's a real incident, but I understand why you don't destroy the station, certainly. That's important stuff, and that can be done. Joe, are you doing any breathe down drills in Oak Grove, or how does a person know how much air they use themselves?
They do two different, one static, one dynamic test in recruit school for firefighter 1 and 2, and then They do a dry bottle breathe for a procedure. And then when I had the AT&T team, we did the same thing. We would record consumption of air doing those two different types of drills, and that was driven into the plans check sheet when they were in hazmat suits, so that we knew kind of what they were going to breathe and anticipate their usage. So it gave us our halfway point on crews, and we used that quite a bit.
Right. Good stuff. All right. So, any comments from the audience outside? Anybody got anything? Please feel free to add it. So the question is, and I want to go over to Greg on this: is Mayday training part of your SCBA at some point? Do you do Mayday training? And then what is it you actually tell them to say during a Mayday? And I got to go back to Adam on this one, because you had a real strange phrase. I remember Adam had a great idea. They actually labeled the inside of their face mask because their acronym was a little lengthy or what have you. But let's go over to Greg first. Greg, what are you doing for Mayday training? Kind of describe what it is, and do you have an acronym you use?
Yeah, so I bring it in with the emergency procedures. So when we get to emergency procedures, we run through, and I drill it repeatedly until they can do it automatically. And then I'll pick them up, move them around the station, black them out, and ask them to run it. And, you know, part of this stuff is we'll start in places where the scenario is they're trapped and they can't get out, and so they have to either resolve their breathing air or, you know, hit the floor and make a Mayday call. And I do that with the first few people, and then I'll give them an exit. And invariably what happens is they run through the whole thing and they stand there. And so, well, what about the door? What about, you know, you're 2 feet from the door? And so I make that point pretty early. And then we just use that PCAM for the Mayday. So it's Mayday, PCAM. And,
all right. And for folks that may not be familiar, it's position, position, conditions, actions, needs. So positions, conditions, actions, needs, and that's a great acronym to just use for any fireground conversation. Quite frankly, I'm a big fan of that. Adam, what is the acronym you had? It was pretty. It was different for me. I shouldn't say it's strange. It was new to me. And what is the acronym you're supposed to use when you get into a Mayday?
Yeah, I picked it up in fire school a way back. I use WWW. CAM, it's who, what, where, the conditions, your air supply, and then once it's been acknowledged, your manual pass device. Set off your pass device manually.
All right, so do that one in slow motion again. So WWWC as in Charlie, AM. So give it to us again. So it's who, what, where, the conditions, your air supply, and then your setting your pass device off manually. Okay. That's a good one. And we've got another one from Martin. Thank you, Martin. Let me get that out there. And that is SLIPA, SLIPA, situation, location, intent, PAR, and air. So, Martin, if you can just give me a little background on what intent might be. Situation I got, location is where I am. PAR is whether my crew is intact, I am assuming. So if you could give me a little more background. Frank, do you use anything strange, anything different that's out there?
No.
All right. Okay, so intent, thank you, Martin. Intent means, are you going to try to save yourself, or are you going to stay in place? And that is an important thing for the Mayday. What is, we all do rapid intervention training. How many of us are training to chase a moving victim? We're awesome at getting that unconscious member, or the member that's trapped, or the member that's lightly trapped. How many of us are drilling to get members that might be moving? I think one of the ones that really struck me many, many years ago is a battalion chief in Kansas City who ultimately was was lost in a warehouse and went through an entire bottle. He was in there as a safety officer and actually went through a 30-minute bottle because he was moving around and about. My favorite is LIP. It's really pretty simple. It's the location, the ID, and the problem. So it's second floor, engine 2, out of air. It's location, ID, and problem. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward, easy enough to remember. But again, it is something outside the normal procedure. Greg, did you want to comment about why you think PCAN makes some sense for you in your operation? I think you're muted, Greg. Or
How about now?
yeah, there you are.
So PCAN is a format that the guys use for everything. We kind of picked that up from you, actually, and I like it. We stuck with it. So when they're having a Mayday, they're not trying to remember a different format. I read a really interesting article on Lunar, where they had quite a high-volume training academy, and while even the instructors could do it very well, even after they'd done a little bit of exercise, they were unable to do Lunar in the fire building. So I wanted to stick with something that was habitual, and that way, because they're using it repeatedly, when they had to use it under stress, they'd be able to spit it out.
Yeah, I agree. I was never a big fan of Lunar, but you know, we're doing a show here that's being broadcast everywhere. A lot of people have used that, taught that, and what have you. So I think I wanted to get that out because it is widely used. I also don't want to underestimate what Adam did. And I'm sorry I don't have the photograph at my fingertips, but Adam literally put a label on the inside high of his face mask, on the inside so it's facing him, so that if physically, if something goes wrong, the acronym is right there in his face, ready to be used. That's a very interesting idea, and I think that's a good deal. So certainly that's important. Let's go and see what else we got. Anything from the viewers? Viewers have been good tonight. We got a bunch of viewers out there, so feel free to jump in with anything that you particularly have as we get down with the discussion. That's a good one. Ethan, why don't you throw that out for the listeners?
Yeah, I've also seen people write your Mayday acronym on the reflective trim of your coat.
Right. Yeah. Whatever works. Whatever you're going to do that's going to make some sense to you. I think that's important. We do have a question from the audience, so let's talk about that. Johnny, thanks for being there. Appreciate it. Interested in knowing if anyone on the panel incorporates increased stress factors, noises, screamings, audio transmissions, chainsaw, or anything to increase stress. That's a great technique. Thank you for that question. Let's just run the panel. Adam, are you doing that? Are you playing some audio tape or doing anything to jack folks up a little bit?
I've done it. We did a training way back, and we had a radio out in the truck bay. I turned some music on and cranked it up and cranked the heat up out there too in the truck bay.
Yeah. So there's simple stuff. I think Johnny was talking really strictly fire noises. Ethan, have you seen that done?
Yes, I have, but we don't do it here.
Right. How about at the academy, Frank? Is that going on?
I'm not that familiar with what they're doing out there at the academy.
All right. It is a good technique. Greg, have you done that or used anything like that?
Yeah, just banging some stuff on the maze and making a little bit of noise. It's really easy to control stress in someone, and you can, making them hurry a little bit. That usually, it's pretty. If you know what you're doing, training people, you can really turn the volume up on the stress, doing little things. Right.
And Martin also indicates that he used external noise. Joe, any cases where you've used external stimulus for the SCBA training?
Only in the industrial side. On the AT&T side, we used quite a bit of it, but not in the fireside at Oak Grove. I don't know what the academy's doing.
Right, right. Good stuff. And you know, I would just point out that you can use external noise for stress. That was the essence of John's question. But I would also tell you that at some point during their SCBA training, they should be made to listen. You get them in a Mayday situation, as we've talked about on this panel a number of times. One of the things that occurred at the tragic Worcester fire many years ago was that they were making banging noises to try to lead people to safety. They were beating with Halligan bars on cement or whatever. So to try to get your student or your candidate to hone in on a noise and to move in a direction where they heard help coming from, in addition to upping the stress level, you're really trying to hone a skill that quite frankly could be life-saving. So thank you for that question, Johnny. I hope that answered your question. And yes, I have actually done that in the past using fire service noises. And you don't do it early on, but you do it at some point, and it does make some sense. You can use phony radio transmissions if they've got radios. You can do anything like that. So thank you for that, Johnny. I appreciate it. Anybody else got anything as we move forward? So what do you do now? So we talked a little bit about what is the entry training. So a member has been on your department for a while, Adam. They've been around for a couple of years. What's your continuing? We'll try to answer as many of these questions as we can in this last round as we go through the panel. So what do you do for Scott training? Because I'm sure in the volunteer world, people say, I'm not going to do SCBA training again. I've been here for 5 years. I don't need to do that. So what is your continuing SCBA training, Adam?
We generally go to like our Fire Service Training Bureau in the wintertime for fire school. Actually, next weekend we've got a live burn trailer coming to our department. So guys will get SCBA training from there. That's pretty about what we do. We don't really have anything set here in our volunteer world at our station.
Okay, and is there somebody assigned in your station that takes care of the maintenance issues? What do you do about your maintenance stuff? And does every member get a mask?
Yeah, every member has their own mask. I go through yearly on our SCBAs, change out the batteries, take a look at the harnesses, make sure they're in working order. Turn them on, make sure nothing's leaking. If they're leaking, we take them out of service. But other than that, then I also make sure everything's documented. I got a check sheet, go down the check sheet, and I do it that way, and then we file it. I give it to the chief, let the chief take a look at it. He signs off on it, and then they get filed.
Right, right. And the dirty word, I think we talked about this, and that's not to put you on the spot. It's really just about everybody is, are members required to take a physical before they use SCBA?
No, they're not.
Right, right. And that's pretty typical. Ethan, what's the status there? Let me throw the questions back up there as you begin to answer. So what's the in-service training? What's the maintenance program like? Are there individual masks? Fit chesting, posi checks, and are there physicals? What can you do with that, Ethan?
We do not do physicals. Each member does have their own mask. Our maintenance program basically is just referred to the manufacturer's recommendations. And then our continuing training is just, again, if we don't go to a fire quarterly, we'll do a breathe-down drill.
Excellent, excellent. Frank, I assume that your maintenance program is probably right on top of it. I don't think that's an issue at all. What is the continuing training for a member? You know, you must have slow stations. Not every station is running all day. What do you do for the folks that are not wearing a mask on a regular basis? What's the in-service training like?
Well, one of the things that we're starting is competency drills. In other words, that they're going to go through certain drills annually to determine whether or not they're actually confident in what they do. Because you're exactly right. We've got some stations that may run 2% of our call volume versus others that are running 2,000-3,000 calls a year. And so you've got a discrepancy there. How do you make sure that people are still confident with what they do? So that's something we've actually instituted this past year. And you know, you're correct about the maintenance. We have 4 guys that do the maintenance on the air packs. We also do annual fit testing and checking the masks to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Right, right, absolutely. Greg, let me refresh your memory just a little bit on what we're talking about. So, continuing ed, your maintenance, individual mask, fit testing, and oh, Frank, you skipped out on the important one. What do you do about annual physicals for wearing a mask? Any medical testing before wearing a mask, or is that just entry level?
Mainly entry level.
All right, yeah, okay. Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just revamped all of this, so it's fresh in my mind. So continued training. I have a 2-platoon rotation. So every second month, the guys rotate through the engine, and the first drill night of the month is air night. So at least every 2 months, they're breathing the tank down to nothing. They can do that however they want. So just a walk around, or if they're pulling hose, or they have some new being creative with it. We use the MSA recommended program, so for the career side, for the teaching, packs need to get checked daily. For the other packs, they're checked weekly or after week. Individuals who use other than a medium mask, so a small or a large, or they have corrective lenses in the masks, get issued masks. Other than that, they're stocked on the trucks. Fit testing annually, yes. Posi checks on regulators, we use a third party who comes in with a test truck, and he comes in and flow checks all the equipment for MSA. And physicals, yes. We're actually just switching to. We didn't want to do NFPA physicals on everybody because they run us about $450. So we have a risk analysis. So if you're male over 45, woman over 55, you have a waist greater than 40 inches for a man or 35 for a woman, BMI over 30, or resting BP over 140, you get the expensive medical. Other than that, it's a release through it's a more simple medical.
Right. Let me get to a question here, or a comment, really. Warren is saying yes to stress. Now, I don't know if that's his personal opinion, his personal vote, that he enjoys stress. I'm not sure where he's going. So, yeah, Warren, because of the delay, is that yes to using stressing noises, or is that yes to the medical physical? If you wouldn't mind answering that, I'd appreciate it. And Martin also talked about, one of the drills, and it's kind of what I referenced in awareness is, let me see if I can do that. Train hard and often. One trick is to disassemble everybody's SCBA, put them in a pile, black the member out, and have them assemble their SCBA, put it on, and get a breath. And that's a pretty common one. It really talks to you about landmarks. It talks to you about understanding your pack inside out and backwards, and literally blindfolded, because it is that big a deal. So I couldn't agree more, Martin. I think that's a great idea. And I didn't. Let me just get. Joe had a little background noise. Let me see if I can fix that. Joe, you actually have to unmute yourself, I think. If you could do that for me.
Sure you did. Sure you did it because of that. I know what it was.
Yeah, it was the censor. I was censoring you. So certainly you can speak to this on both sides, from the Oak Grove side, and certainly what you had to do in AT&T, because I think the industrial side, a lot of people don't realize there are more requirements, if you will. So just speak to this, if you would.
Well, the continuing training is in both places. I mean, they're part of all the training they do. Oak Grove does a lot of live burns, and so there's quite a bit of continuous SCBA familiarization training used. From the AT&T side, where I left there, from the industrial side, that was a big deal. Maintenance was a big deal. And for instance, the regulator flow checks for Oak Grove just finished a complete round of those. That was also done annually. The annual fit testing was done with AT&T. The medical examinations were done. They're not done at Oak Grove. They're individual mask industrial, not at Oak Grove. So, but most of that's due to money. I mean, that's simply at the end of the day, the budget won't allow everything that you choose to do to be there. So, but for instance, the packs are all inspected at a minimum, either at post-event or they're inspected every 2 weeks, all the way down to the alarms. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think, and I would just tell the listeners this, I was of the firm belief, we had a requirement that you had to breathe down a cylinder once per month. If you caught a job, then obviously we just documented that you caught a fire and you breathed it down. But I just didn't want to be in a position where something bad would happen and say that, Sally or Johnny had not worn an air pack in 30 days.
One of the, Chief, if I may add, one of the things that happened in my career over a long period of time on the industrial side and lately on the volunteer side is people who were not claustrophobic when they began their service became claustrophobic during their service. And they started hiding the fact they were claustrophobic. And this became an issue. And most of it had to do with not being my own psychiatrist for a second, but most of it you could correlate very strong traumatic events in their lives. Maybe major illnesses, maybe major trauma, but things that had happened in their life. And they went from tolerating it to not tolerating all the things about SCBA use. It did change.
Oh, yeah, I can absolutely believe that. There's no question. I also had a strange situation. I had a dear friend of mine who was unbelievable wearing an SCBA, absolutely phenomenal. You zip him into a level A suit and all bets were off. He was going to cut his way out of that $2,000 suit in about 3 seconds. Very comfortable with the SCBA, but couldn't wear a level A. So you're right. People's later in life, things change, whatever, and there are some physiological and psychological changes. And I would also say to folks, this is Pete's personal opinion here. I think that SCBA is a mental game, as well as a physical exertion game. I think it is, in fact, mind over matter in a lot of cases. You're hearing your own breathing. It's all about controlling your breathing. It's something that happens naturally. But when we throw the SCBA on, it can overwhelm the new recruit firefighter or what have you. So it certainly can be an issue. Let's get over to Warren. He's responded to some of what was on the thing. So they do have individual face pieces. The SCBA shop does routine maintenance and repairs. Physicals and fit testing are required, and there are routine drills with SCBA for the in-service companies. So it sounds like they've covered it pretty well there, covered all the bases. The other reason I framed that slide the way I framed it is that when you look at NIOSH reports, you will see these things. Under the SCBA category, it's poor SCBA maintenance. We just had one here in New England. I want to say it was either Hartford or New Haven. It was the last line of duty death they had. There's concerns about the low air alarm on the pass device is being discussed now, and bottles being out of test date and those kinds of things. I don't have all of the information, but it does come up now and again, and it is an issue that we should be aware of. Certainly the listener should be aware of. And Warren, he's probably cursing me, but yes, his stress, the answer to stress was using noises to create stress during training. I just thought he was volunteering for stress, which he does now and again, so I wanted to clarify that for the viewer. So thank you, Warren. I appreciate that. So what do we got as we go here? We're at the end of our program. Joe, why don't you pop back up on screen and what's the story? Anything we need to leave our listeners with? Adam, what would you like to leave the viewer with as it relates to SCBA?
train on it, get to know that piece of equipment. I think I read in one of the part of the chat room that's an important piece of equipment on the fire gun. Get to know it and learn it inside and out.
I like it. I like it. Ethan, what do you got to share? And that's a good one. Why don't you share that comment right there? That's a big one. The Indianapolis incident.
No, I absolutely agree with Adam. There was an incident in Indy a couple of years back where there was a big crack in the regulator assembly, and that just happened from routine use. And I'll see if I can pull that report here real quick.
Yeah, if you can do that, and I would just tell our listeners, if you were not aware of that, again, it does go back a year and a half or so. It was Scott was the face piece. It is where the regulator went in, and it was the mask area right around where that went in had significant cracking. We also discovered on our department, we discovered some where just people, it's their own mask and it gets used. It gets tossed in the back of the truck or what have you. Adam's also indicating he found cracks in face pieces as well. So it was out there. If you're not aware of that, you can email one of us and we'll get you the right info for sure. And make that happen. Frank, what can you leave the viewers with as it relates to SCBA training?
I think it's something everyone's got to take seriously, because if we're not familiar with the packs and how they operate, what they can do to save our lives, I think it's going to be a problem for whoever is using those packs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and good point. You're alluding to the other fact is, just because it was checked yesterday, make sure you're not pencil whipping those checks. Make sure that you're checking that mask.
And also just taking care of the air packs. I mean, those are the problems we have constantly. Somebody's going to slam the patch device in the door. This stuff costs lots of money to get repaired, and so it's just be careful.
Right. And to Frank's point, an air pack today is probably pushing almost $7,000. It's probably in the high sixes or something. So, parts and pieces get worn out and damaged pretty easily. Greg, what's your message for the viewers about SCBA training and/or maintenance?
Well, the one I use as a standby when I prep a class for SCBA is I have a skydiving history, and from the time you get your pull altitude to the time you turn into a meat bomb is about 15 seconds if you don't know your emergency procedures. And I relate that to, I tell them to, do some exercise and then exhale and see how long it takes before they don't function anymore. So I run through the emergency procedures over and over and over again until it's habit. And I recommend that everybody run through the emergency procedures every time they have a pack on, just to reinforce the behavior.
Right. Absolutely. Great stuff. Joe, what's your message for folks watching, either use, training, or maintenance?
I guess one of my pet peeves has always been the weakest part of that. People treat like an air pack and a regulator like a halogen bar. They're not that tough. A piece of moisture, a drop of moisture in a below freezing day can fix it so you run out of air. There needs to be the ethic with the air pack like they are now with clean gear. We ought to be cleaning these packs. We can't expect them well if we don't clean them well. We need to take better care maintenance-wise of those. So that is, like you said, it's not. I don't know of any one singular more critical element between us and disaster than that that environment we create with that pack. So that's one big deal for me. And then the next one for me is simply that with an air pack, the air pack must be constantly checked, or your buddy checked. In other words, if you line up to go inside and you got 40% less air than your buddy, you got a problem. So it's more than just you. It's your crew. So that's my two.
Right. And just Martin is sharing with us, daily checkoffs are important. Train on SCBA often. clean, place masks, care in the bags, clean them often, take care of them. And again, just simple, Joe alluded to it. It's something I say on the podcast all the time. It's something I've believed all my career. There is nothing more important when you're in a burning building than your next breath of air. I don't know. If somebody's got something more important than that, please let me do that. Certainly, I think that, let me know. Let me know if you can, because that is it. It is your next breath of air, literally. A couple of quick comments from the audience. Warren's relating to my comment. A Level A suit is a body bag with a window in it. That's just a different touch, but it is. And then Johnny is commenting, great point, Chief Starnes, on the claustrophobia. This Rick George goes into depth about the monster within. So that's, Joe, you're one closer to the T-shirt, right? When a member of the audience gives you credit for something, you're getting closer to the T-shirt. So Johnny said that. So thank you. Thank you, Johnny, for being out there. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it tonight. I think that's where we'll leave it. We will be back next week. Actually, Warren, we got to test with Warren before next week. We're going to have a discussion on ISO. Is it still relevant, and what do we do about it, and so on and so forth. So I think we'll leave it there. We'll see you next week. If you want to watch any of the archives of the show, please go over to firefightingtoday.com. All of our stuff is over there, and you can feel free to look at any of the back episodes. We'll see you next week.